Amine, te atua, te piringa, toku oranga. Haere mai e te wairua tapu, whakakia te ngā kaua tanga te whakapono. Whakauri ai roto i a rātou te kāpuro o tō aroha. Tōnua mai tō wairua, ka ngauti o mātou ngā kau, ka whakautia te mato te whenua. E te atua nau i whakamātou te ngā kaua tanga te whakapono mā te maramatanga o te wairua tapu. O mai ki a mātou ki ngā mea tika matau a wairua, kia ari tonu mo te mariatanga i tukua mai ani. Arihina tēnei poari I rungi te āhotanga o tēnei rangi. Ko te rangi o haki hea rehoa e whiti ana ki runga rawa e te atua kārawa. Ka ho mai e koe nei taonga he paenga mō ngā tāngata katoa. Āwhina tia mai rā kia tahuri atu ai o whakaro ki a koe e te kaihanga o te rangi. O ngā mea katoa mātou mātou ariki mahi hukaraiti. Āmine. E noho.
Thank you. Ngā mihi, Charles. We have a leave of absence granted to Councillor Lawson as her son gets married this weekend. And we have apologies from Councillor Henry Hickey and Renata Napier. Conflicts of interest, I'll move from the chair that these be adopted. I have a seconder, please. Councillor Redstone. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, thank you, that is carried. Conflicts of interest, if I can just remind councillors to declare conflicts of interest in and at the appropriate time. Now, confirmation of the minutes. Any matters arising from those minutes? Moved by Councillor Watkins, second by Councillor Kerr. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Now, a very important part, beginning our second council meeting for this triennium, is we would like to welcome Damon Harvey up to the podium, and Damon will, so he can join us with our hearings today for Reserve Management Plan for Frimley Park. We would like Damon to make his declaration of elected members. Very warm welcome to you, Damon.
Thank you. I, Damon John Harvey, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Hastings District Council the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Hastings District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 and any other act. Dated at Hastings this 29th of November 2022.
Hip hip hooray!
Thank you very much. I'll keep it short and sweet, but I'd just like to thank my family for their support over the last 6 years and coming into this next triennium. As you can see, they're all here this morning. No, they're not, just my lovely wife, Anna. And just on behalf of the community, again, I'd like to thank the community for all of their support and look forward to being your voice over the next 3 years. So thank you very much. Cheers. Now the tie can come off. No.
We'll usher you to your seat. We did usher everybody last time to their seats. Well, that was great, and now we're ready to rock and roll for our triennium with now everyone being inducted. Just moving on to item number 6, and that is the appointments of the Tangata Whenua Waste Treatment Joint Committee. And please note that this meeting is not on Friday the 2nd, but Monday the 5th. And so if we turn to item number 6, this is a temporary addition. Happy to move from the chair. Have a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Any questions?
Yes,
Councillor Redstone.
thank you, Worship. Are we standing orders or not standing?
You can remove the standing orders if you wish.
Thank you, yes, I'd like to do that.
Have a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Watkins. All those in favour that we remove the standing orders for today's meeting?
Just to clarify, Your Worship, if I may, the piece that you're amending is simply the need to stand. The rest of the standing orders remains.
Thank you.
Need to stand?
And I have a question, please, Your Worship.
Just put that.
Thank you.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you. Thank you, Anne.
Waste Futures Committee meeting's also on Friday, but we don't have anything on our agenda about who's on it.
Louise, thank you.
Through you, the Chair, Councillor Redstone, we addressed the membership for that committee on the 3rd of November. So we've got the members for that one in
Thanks,
place
Louise,
already.
I must have missed that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbyn?
Your Worship, I've been seconded to this committee in the interim, but I'm not available on that day.
Your Honour, I can attend how many do you need? How many do you have? You have 2. So I can attend on Monday. All right. Okay. So do you... No, it's only 3. So I'm happy to attend that meeting to make up that quorum. And could someone move that motion, please? Thank you. Councillor Sholem, seconded Councillor Nixon. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Right, item number 7. This is the appointments, and this is the permanent appointments for the Hastings District Licensing Committee for 2025 triennium. And you will note...
Your Worship, if I can just declare a conflict being
Yes, thank you.
on there.
So Councillor Tania Kerr is the Chair, Councillor Eileen Lawson, Deputy Chair, Mr Wayne Bradshaw, list member, Mr Dave Fallows, list member, and Mr George Lyons, who has been appointed as a committee commissioner until June next year. So do I have a mover, please? Thank you. Councillor Redstone, seconded Councillor Sholem. Any questions? All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Now the purpose of our day, our fabulous Frimley Park and our beautiful reserve management plan, and what a great process this has been. And welcome to our members of the community who are very connected to Frimley Park. Cheryl, Richard, Monique, lovely to have you here. So we are now just about to start with this whole process, and I invite Alex, who's done amazing work with this management plan, to take us through this process.
Thank you, Worship.
You want to give an overview before we invite our speakers up?
Just got the submission of some people here who are going to get pulled now.
Yes. So we're ready to start with our submitters. So very warm welcome to Monique. You're our first today. So here we are. Don't be overwhelmed. We are very friendly in here, although it looks, looks a bit intense. Oh, it's lovely to see you here.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. I thought I would take this opportunity just to say a few words, and I guess it's mainly because I think what's happened so far in the Frimley Park, 'cause I was concerned about the whole development of the water structures and things, but I think it's turned out to be amazing. But as the owner of the shops, and you know, my parents bought the shops many years ago, 45 years ago, and we've gone through lots of actually really tough times, to be honest. And so we're really grateful for that whole development of Frimley, and I think it's really, you know, Frimley's a beautiful area of Hastings now. And so we would like to work together with the council to actually beautify that whole area. You know, I think it's not only the park. I think that the pools need some attention. I know quite a bit of work was done in the last few years on the inside of the pools and changing rooms and, you know, what have you. But I think there's more to be done there. You know, the grandstand really is an eyesore from the road. The exterior of the building, you know, the maintenance is quite poor. Often the lawns aren't mowed for a long time. There's weeds growing everywhere. So I would like to see a wee bit more work done there. But I have written a few things down here that I would like to say, and I will have to read them because I think I'm better to read them.
So councillors can follow to your submission,
Yeah.
Monique, so, and you, number 3 on page, here we are. Submission number 3, has everyone got that?
It's on the back of the first page, isn't it?
Okay. That's all right. You just take us through it. Rachel, you tell us the page number? Page 7, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just start from the beginning. It's a wee bit repetitive of what I've just said, but, you know, firstly, I'd like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I think it's a great opportunity. We're very excited to see that there is, in fact, a Frimley Park Reserve Management Plan in place. I think that's fantastic. But we do feel that the park, the pools and the shops are all part of the Frimley community and need to be looked at kind of as a whole, really. There should be some consideration for all three in the plan. We'd like to see some beautification of the pools, which should include the exterior, tree planting, etc. I kind of think it'd be quite nice to have some smaller trees planted along the road. Planter boxes, perhaps, you know, stretching outside the front of the shops. It would also give the shops a little more protection. We've suffered from 2 ram raids already now in Four Square. Was the District Council Traffic Management Roading involved in the Frimley Park Reserve Plan? Because there is a problem sometimes with speed. Cars do go too fast along there, and I get quite nervous, especially when the pools are open and there's a lot of children around. So I think there needs to be some consideration for slowing the traffic down, because we've got Girls High, Frimley School, which is a huge school. We've got kindergartens, daycares. There's a lot happening on Frimley Road in the mornings particularly, and, you know, 3 o'clock. And I have been talking about this for a wee while. Has there been any consideration for parking? I do think that angle parking would improve the parking along there. I think, you know, more people would be able to park, especially down that one side. I don't know that you're aware, but certainly it's a real battle in the summer because a lot of the hospital staff park on those roads that are perpendicular that run between Frimley Road and Omahu Road. So all of those roads are full of people that work in the hospital, and, you know, so it is tricky at times. Yeah, it is. And, you know, we've got a gorgeous little cafe there, and, you know, and in the salon, and there's a lot of elderly people that parking can be quite short outside the shops. Yeah. What is the future of the pools? We feel that the Frimley Aquatic Centre is very important to the people of the community of Frimley. Yes. We really do. And not just Frimley, but particularly for Frimley. I think that there's some beautiful homes built in Frimley, and, you know, they've maximised the opportunity on their land. So there wouldn't be a lot of homes there that have got pools, I wouldn't imagine. And we really want to encourage our children and our grandchildren to still have the opportunity to swim. And I just remember the times that we had at the pools as children. You know, we'd go for the whole day. We'd have picnics, there'd be carnival evenings. I remember going swimming till 8 o'clock at night at the pools. It was a wonderful time for the kids of Frimley to come together, you know, and we'd really like to see that happen again. And yeah, I think that it should be the equivalent of the Havelock North complex, to be honest, a family destination where children can swim, they can build their water confidence, families can have picnics, it can be a destination for families. And I'd like to work together, you know, with the council to try and make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Monique.
listening to me today.
And you've had feedback from the officers on your submission? Alex, is that, that's, everyone's received their feedback, haven't they?
Oh, yes, I just
Yeah.
received a feedback.
Great.
Yes, I did.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
so, and a lot of those things, and thank you for your views on the pools, and council is certainly very aware of having a community pool there.
Great
And
asset for Hastings.
yes, and all of the, you know, you think of all the Napier schools that come in and use it for sports and things
Yeah,
like
they do.
that.
Here
So,
at Tom Immediate uses the water
yes,
swimming.
that's right.
You know, it really is, and you know, I think that it was neglected for a long time,
Yes.
and I think we went through quite a cycle in Frimley where, you know, it wasn't used so often, but it's all come back now. I think that, you know, last year I really noticed lots of families on the weekends were there having picnics and
Yes. Yeah.
and we have to encourage it. Our children, our little ones need to learn to swim. They need to have water
Yes.
confidence.
They certainly do. Yeah. No, thank you so much. And thank you, Richard, for your comments and views. And I've just picked those up as well. And so, and I think this is a big opportunity actually for us to work closer together, as you say, with, you know, with your tenants. I have been concerned about what the Foursquare operate, and I never got down there myself to see him, but we need to support you as
Well, I've actually had
commercial
concrete,
owners.
I've put concrete blocks in front of the Foursquare at the moment.
Right.
There's the bollards and things, it's all been, you know, we sort of got it underway, and then, you know, the police,
Yes.
the government freed some money up.
Yes.
We had to do it through the police, and we thought, well, we won't spend this $25,000, we'll see what we can get through the, you know, through the government.
Yes.
But the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing there, so I don't think any business in Hawke's Bay actually has received any of that money from the government.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and then
Well, we
there's
need to
a
follow
delay, there's
that
a
up.
delay, so we had to sort of
Okay.
reinstigate the whole bollard thing ourselves, but because of Christmas and, you know, so we can't get anything there, you know, until next year. Well, we can't have that exposed
No.
because,
No.
you know, it's been twice now, and it's just, they need to sleep. The owners of the business need to be able to go to sleep.
Yes, they
at
do.
night.
Yeah.
So we put these concrete blocks outside, which look awful, but all of the people are from there quite happy it's there because they feel very sorry for them.
Yes, and as the community has grown so much over the last few years with all the housing development and continuing to grow,
It's a busy Foursquare.
it's a busy area, and it has a very important purpose. So all of the shops.
Yeah.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I notice I've gained a promotion to being an appointee. It's really kind.
Yes, I see that. Sorry, that's why I didn't recognise you.
No, look, that's okay. Thank you very much for your submission, Monique, and I appreciate the problem. I really understand Frimley Road. And if I could just track back a little bit, back in about 2010, both Geraldine at Girls High and Frimley School asked for angle parking, and both schools were prepared to donate the land back to the trees so that it could occur, and we were turned down, both of us. So since that time, we've had the development of Lyndhurst Road, the Lyndhurst development, we've had Omahu Road, we've had the Regional Sports Park. I'd like to know, has there been a traffic count done on Frimley Road?
So I think that's probably outside the scope of the reserve management plan. I think that's something that we take up with the officers, from roading, and we could put that in the annual plan submission.
With
So
respect
let's
to
do some
Worship,
more work.
parking is included in part of Frimley Park, and it's the whole issue of the whole of Frimley Road.
Yep, okay, so I think we picked that up with the roading engineers
you.
as well, as a submission. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sandra.
very much. Lovely to see you, Monique. Thank you, Richard. Our next submitter today is Michael Smiley. Is Michael with us? Not yet? No, okay. Cheryl, would you like to come in? No, I don't need to speak. No? So our councillors who may not have met Cheryl Latty, and Cheryl is a wonderful community supporter and looks after our Rose Society. And of those of you who went down to the Rose Gardens, that's Cheryl and her amazing team's work, inviting everybody in for that fabulous day, which we always enjoy once a year. And we love your work. Thank you, Cheryl. All right, so officers, you might just take us through some more of these submissions while we wait for the next submitter to come in. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. I'll run through a background to the Reserve Management Plan. So Frimley Park is a just wait for the slides to catch up. Frimley Park is almost 20 hectares. It's a large park owned and managed by Hastings District Council. The park is largely classified as Recreation Reserve under the Reserves Act, with the small sections containing water infrastructure classified as local purpose network utility. The park was donated by the Williams family in the 1950s. As we've heard, the park is in the residential suburb of Frimley. It is bordered by the Frimley shops to the northwest, Lindisfarne College, Hastings Girls High School, Frimley Primary School, and residential properties. The park has a large number of well-loved and beautiful facilities and features, which I'll just briefly run through. There's a sunken garden and Formore Avenue. The sunken garden contains the sundial, which is a memorial to the Williams family, and it's in the approximate location of where the homestead was until the 1950s. The Rose Gardens, which, as we've also heard, is a hugely loved and appreciated facility within the park, including the pavilion in the centre, which is a very popular location for events, including weddings and Rose Sunday. The maze, the grass maze, which sits behind the Rose Gardens and was constructed in the 1990s. The park contains a large number of mature trees, including 21 notable trees. The playground, which sits near Frimley Road, with a toilet facility, just to the right. The maintenance shed area, so the maintenance sheds pictured there have largely been removed now. They're situated next to near the playground, with the petanque court sitting between the two areas. This area formed a key part of consultation during the community engagement period. Sports fields, which are used for cricket in summer and football in winter. The aquatic centre, and the water storage and treatment facility, which is due to open shortly. Previously on the same title is a piece of land on the corner of Pakawhai Road and Frimley Road, known as Pakawhai Corner. So just a brief overview of the Reserve Management Plan process that we've been through. So the Reserve Management Plan process was triggered off by the resource consent application process undertaken for the construction and operation of the water treatment plant in Reservoir. The resource consent required removal of the maintenance sheds, and so the community engagement was a great opportunity to talk to the community about what they would like to see in that area. We began our Reserve Management Plan process in March last year by asking the community what they would like to see in the park. We received 163 pieces of feedback, and Focal, who undertook the community engagement for us, undertook 70 engagements, including an open day. At the same time, we commissioned a number of specialist reports, and this was then followed by a community workshop in October last year. We summarised the community engagement and specialist reports and workshop feedback into a key themes document, which we presented to the community in March. This was followed by preparation of the draft reserve management plan, which was workshopped with the Eco District Subcommittee and Strategy and Policy Committees in May and June this year. The management plan was then released for consultation in July and including an open day with 20 submissions received, which has brought us to the hearing today. So just to highlight the community engagement steps, so the plan was prepared in accordance with the Reserves Act, which requires 2 rounds of community engagement. The first to ask the community what they would like to see in the park in the future, how the park can be managed and developed. That was undertaken by Focal, and as I mentioned, followed by a community workshop and the release of the key themes and documents earlier this year for comment by the community. This is an additional step. And then followed by the release of the draft plan and also a summary of the draft plan. Specialist reports. We commissioned a number of specialist reports, including an archaeological screening report, an arboricultural report, a crime prevention through environmental design report, and a historical report. And now I'll give a brief overview of the draft plan. So the park vision is a protection, management and enhancement of the natural, historic, cultural and formal and informal recreation values of Frimley Park. The park continues to provide a venue for organised sport and recreation, with the balance used for passive recreation and relaxation in a natural environment, together with provision of critical network infrastructure. The goals and key actions summarise the key shifts across the park. In terms of the natural environment, the park continues to be a rich source of mature trees, including exotic trees as well as including more indigenous trees in the canopy succession planning. The plan also provides for enhanced management of these assets. In terms of the heritage of the park, the plan provides for council to work with key stakeholders, including Mana Whenua and the surrounding schools, to develop, to recognise the heritage of the land and its use over time through signage and landscape design, including recognition of the Paleo Channel, which was identified through the archaeological report. In terms of access into and around the park, recognising the park is well loved by all members of our community. The plan really provides a focus on improving accessibility into and around the park, including using accessible design and construction of the sensory garden, toilet facility in a more accessible location, identifying and designing a new main entrance and improving the path network around into and through the park. And in terms of use of the park, the main shift in the plan is construction of a sensory garden with a new main entrance, an expanded playground, and supporting the ongoing use of the sports fields for year-round sports activities. So these key shifts are shown here. The A is the new main entrance and sensory garden near Frimley Road, expansion of the playground, and parking and access improvements on both frontages and throughout the park. A brief overview of the sensory garden. So in community engagement, the strongest theme that came through in that first stage of community engagement was to use that space as a garden space, and there are a number of sub-themes in terms of the type of garden and activities that people could do in that garden. And pulling all of that feedback together, the draft plan proposes a sensory garden to be developed in partnership with the Hastings Rotary Club, relocating the sensory garden from Splash Planet to enable this garden to be used by all members of our community all throughout the year. It's designed to be an exploratory garden to activate the 5 senses, including a mix of garden beds at different levels to enable access by people of all abilities, central gathering area for schools or visiting groups with a small stage for concerts or performances, interactive elements designed to activate the senses such as musical chimes or a musical bridge, a water feature, and indigenous planting and heritage fruit trees, recognising the heritage of the park As I mentioned, a key theme in this plan is to improve accessibility into and throughout the park. So the plan proposes for a new main entrance with the goal of seating, landscaping, signage and cultural markers and additional pathways, which are highlighted there in orange, leading to the sensory garden, through the sunken gardens, down to the rose gardens and around the outer circle of the rose gardens, and a new shared path on the Lyndhurst Road frontage. Another key theme that came through in the community engagement was people wanted to see play equipment for to challenge older children. And so the plan proposes for 3 play pieces just joined onto the existing footprint of the playground, providing challenge to older children while also providing play value for all ages. At the same time as developing the playground, the plan also provides for additional active recreation in this area with a story walk, adult fitness equipment, and also linking in a new toilet in a more accessible location for users of the playground, but also users of the rose gardens. We heard through in community engagement that people had concerns around parking on both frontages. On the Lyndhurst Road frontage, the concerns were around the parking demand and pressures during sports events. So the plan proposes for additional parking here and traffic safety, traffic calming measures, and completion of the highway link to the sports park. The plan proposes for enhanced management of the trees across asset lifespans. It recognises the notable trees and trees of national and international significance that were identified in the Arboricultural Report. The plan proposes that Indigenous trees are included in the canopy succession planning, and the plan proposes removal of the necklace poplar tree. All of these shifts are captured in the concept plan and linked to the Capital Works program, providing staging the works over a 10-year period for an approximate value of works at $2 million. So as I mentioned, we went out for consultation from July to September this year. We received 20 submissions, which covered 21 remedies. We received 2 submissions in support. And then these are the remedies, the submissions seeking the remedies, which I will go through individually. So we'll pause now for more oral submissions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex. And fantastic to see all those wonderful things up there. So now we have Michael Smiley here with us today. Very warm welcome to you, Michael. Would you like to come forward? Councillors, Michael's submission is on in your attachment, page 29 and 495 in your agenda book. Hello, Michael. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for your very thorough submission today.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I'm a house painter and I often listen to Talkback, and of course councils are often mentioned on Talkback, and when I hear people grizzling about their local council, I say, well, they need to come to Hastings because we do have a council that listens, and we really appreciate that. That is actually your job, is to listen to people, and if you do, you gain their support. So I thank you for that. The first thing I'd like to mention is the heritage of the park. I'm very glad that the council decided to focus on the European heritage of this park, because it is actually European. You know, it was the Williams that set up that area. It's very significant with the first orchards being set up there. There is a book that Michael Fowler wrote, and I can't remember the name of it. I emailed you. You very quickly got back to me with the name, and then I lost the email.
What was the book, Michael?
The 100 Harvests.
100 Harvests.
100 Harvests, right. Awesome. Really worth reading, because it's quite an incredible story of back in the, was it the late 19th, early 20th century, where the very first orchards and processing was set up. And the fascinating thing about that is one reason why it failed was the lack of workers. So 100 years ago, it was still the same problem. You know, we have areas that celebrate other cultures, and I think it's really important that we should also celebrate the European culture in this instance. It would be nice if in some way, at some time, we could also celebrate the input of the Chinese community into the Hastings district, because that's very important as well. The other thing I'd like to highlight is the parking. I live in Frimley Road, and so very aware of the traffic in that area. And it's really nice to see our street clogged up with parking on Saturdays when there's so many families involved in the park. But, and since the children's playground was upgraded, there's been, there's always families there just enjoying the playground or having a picnic or whatever. So that's a really good asset, but the parking is actually quite a problem. And I wonder if it's possible to make the footpath, use that for parking, and then put the footpath back into the berm. And angle parking, of course, would allow for more parking and also make it safer, because at the moment people are opening doors into the traffic, whereas angle parking, that doesn't happen. Another thing I'd like to highlight is the suggestion of putting speed bumps in those streets. And I'm thoroughly opposed to speed bumps being installed on either Lyndhurst Road or Frimley Road. Both roads are busy feeder roads now, and speed bumps would hinder the easy flow of traffic. Speed bumps are frustrating, uncomfortable, and an enigma in a time when we're concerned about pollution and climate change, since they must increase vehicle emissions. Speed bumps are also a disease and become a widespread and invasive. They're the traffic engineer's lazy option for traffic control. I also support the submission by Alex Mabum about use of the poplar when it's cut down. And one of the things I thought of, I don't know what the technical name is, but a hanging carving, that's something like that, or some furniture. I see somebody else suggested the wood turning club being given some timber as well. And, so it'd be nice to see something permanent from that. I also support the submission by Susan Tidwell about the Frimley pools. They should continue to be maintained and even upgraded. Having the pools at the sports park isn't really a public pool. It's there for a specific purpose, whereas the Frimley pools are public pools. And I think they're well used in the summer. And one of my dreams is that they could be heated, so that I know that's expensive, but then they would be used, all year round rather than just in the summer. And just a comment about the Rose Garden, we really don't want that to become full of memorials, and we do have to be careful how many memorials are put in there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Redstone?
Thank you, Michael. I've
Okay.
just got a question
Just a
about,
question
just
for you,
got a
Michael.
question
Oh, sorry.
about the traffic calming. Are you aware of chicanes, and do you have any problems with a chicane rather than a speed bump?
Explain to me what a
Chicanes
chicane
do
is.
that.
Oh, yeah, they're a bit frustrating as well, aren't they?
Not so
Okay.
noisy.
All right, thank you.
Just a thought.
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you.
Just one more question.
Michael, I live in Frimley too, in Ikanui Place, and I'm aware of the volume of traffic and the speed of traffic in Frimley Road. And I just want to ask your opinion about angle parking. Because if we just think when we parallel park, when you get in your car to move off, you look in your rear vision mirror and you can see clearly down the road behind you. Angle parking and more high-profile vehicles, you actually have to back out almost blind till 2/3 of your vehicle is out on the road before you even know if something's roaring up towards you. So if we go angle parking, I guess my thoughts are you encroach on more parkland to actually reverse out and parallel to the road before you get on the main road itself. You just ask for a comment, from yourself.
Yeah, your comment's quite correct. It's just that having the angle parking would mean more parks. Yeah, and also that people are unloading children and so on beside another car rather than, because parents are often quite thoughtful and thoughtless and unload their children on the roadside rather than the footpath side.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you for coming. You're most welcome to stay and listen to the proceedings this morning or whatever, but thank you for your well-written submission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very warm welcome to Crystal from the Cancer Society. Crystal Lau, her submission is number 18. And I think you have a presentation for us, Crystal.
Yes, I do.
Great, thank you.
Is this how I control these
Yes, so
slides?
that you're all on. Everyone can
this
hear
is
you.
Right. Kia ora everyone, I'm Crystal Lau and I work as the health promoter at the Cancer Society Hawke's Bay, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. And my submission focuses on the Hastings District Council's aim to create a safe, healthy and livable community outlined in a long-term plan, as well as the council's priorities to support the community's health and well-being, and also the council's ability to achieve this by building healthy policies and creating supportive environments as recommended by the Ottawa Charter. Now, first of all, I'd like to commend the council on a job well done in providing beautifully placed shade at the aquatic centre and the Frimley Park, park benches, picnic tables, the playgrounds, and the waiting areas. Yes, and I'm thankful and blessed that the council has carefully considered some protective measures so that our community can play in a safe environment while enjoying being outdoors. Now, this socio-economic deprivation map shows that Frimley Park is located centrally within our community, experiencing higher deprivation than other areas in Hastings. And I'm sure that everyone agrees that any proposed management plan in our community needs to distribute equitably so that people living in high deprivation areas are not further disadvantaged. However, an important question is, how do the current park and aquatic center layout support reducing risk factors for skin cancer and help people in our community live healthy lives? Now let's look at the local skin cancer death statistics in Hawke's Bay, and it is concerning that our death rates are actually higher than the national average. And similarly, although skin cancer rates are higher in the fair-skinned populations, yet Maori and Pacific populations are more at risk of dying from skin cancer. And the death statistics gives compelling reasons as to why this needs to be a priority or bearing the burden of ultraviolet harm from the sun. And as I like to say, prevention is still better than cure, and 90% of skin cancer is preventable. So with the Hastings District Council's help in creating supportive environments like providing shade, The premature loss of kuya and kaumata is stopped, thereby allowing cultural traditions and knowledge to be passed on to our younger generations and upholding the iwi and hapu as role models. And our changing environment does not actually help either, with an increase in ozone depletion, resulting in increase in skin cancer rates in New Zealand. Now, sun protection efforts from local government will be even more important to mitigate the health impacts of climate change in the community. And these are recently published articles by One New Zealand, New Zealand Herald, and Radio New Zealand, citing UV levels higher this year than it is last year. So with UV levels rising, sun protection is all the more a critical workplace health and safety issue for outdoor workers too. So what is the current shade provision like for parents, teachers, and young ones playing at the field? Now, these are park benches located around the sports field with tall leafy trees far from where the benches are at. So there's essentially a lack of shade provision at benches where park users can take a break from and spectate from. So we can see that school children frequent the Friendly Park sports ground when UV levels are usually at its peak. So from 10 in the morning right through to 4 p.m. So here we have the wading pool with no shade provision. And we know that there are two types of UV. So UVA, that leads to aging, so A, aging, such as wrinkles, moles, freckles, and sunspots, and UVB, that leads to sunburn, so B for sunburn. What is concerning is that one blistering sunburn during childhood more than doubles their chance of developing melanoma, which is a form of skin cancer, later on in life, all the more stressing the importance of shade provision during early life. Now, this slide shows an example of good shade provision at a sporting field, whereby permanent shade structures are recommended at spectating areas and amenities nearby. The following slide shows recommendations for permanent shade sails over the wading pool. And a shade sail over the wading pool at the aquatic center shows minimal coverage, and there is an opportunity to increase and angle the shade sail to maximize shade coverage over the pool. Now, this slide shows the current level of sun protection commitment made by Hastings District Councils compared to your immediate neighbours. And there is much work to be done if we are going to reduce the visibility and harm of skin cancer deaths in our community. Now, the Friendly Park Management Plan is an opportunity for the council to refine its consideration of sun protection under Section 2.5, playgrounds, and Section 2.9, park furniture, and this can include bringing in a sun protection policy. And according to research, implementing a sun protection policy is the most effective way to create supportive sun-safe environments and reduce the inequalities in skin cancer outcomes. Now, the benefit of shade provision under the policy is that it is the best way to get people to stay at the park longer by making it comfortable. Now, how so? It helps to have sitting areas where children can cool off and mom and dad can take a break from, and create a space that's perfect for spectating games, reading a book, or just chatting with friends. Also, shade structures can extend the lifespan and reduce the wear and tear of park furniture. And moving on to the council's role in creating healthier outdoor workplaces and healthier funnel. Now, outdoor workers have an exceptionally high risk of skin cancer because they receive 5 to 10 times more UV radiation exposure annually as compared to indoor workers. Yet, we know that skin cancer is largely preventable, with 90% of all skin cancers being attributed to excess sun exposure. And it would be great if the council is not already doing to just encourage or provide workers with sun protective uniforms such as wide brim hats, long sleeve collared shirts, sunglasses, sunscreens, and just encourage them to stay under the shade while they're taking their breaks. So what can you do as councils to help reduce the harm from UV radiation? Now, the sun protection policy is crucial in minimizing harm, and this makes shade planning possible and recognizes the council's responsibility as employees of outdoor workers, and enables the community to practice healthy behaviors. Next, taking a look at the park as a whole, are the spaces encouraging families to be physically active, but putting them at risk of skin cancer. Now, a shade audit would help assess existing shade and identify shade budgeting and additional shade requirements in planning for outdoor locations. Lastly, we know that vaping is now a pandemic in this country, especially among our rangatahi, and we know that firstly, there is increasing evidence of vaping harms. Secondly, people who have never smoked in their life should not be picking up vaping. Also, positive role modeling is essential for child health and well-being development, hence providing smoke-free and vape-free signage in areas visible to the public gives mana to park users to advocate for smoke-free and vape-free behaviours at the park, which really ties in nicely with the joint smoke-free and vape-free policy rolling out by your council soon. So again, the Cancer Society is here to offer support such as providing a sun protection template, policy template, and a shade audit guide. And with that, thank you for your time and attention today, and I'll open the floor up with questions.
Thank you very much, Crystal, for a very thorough presentation and highlighting some of those issues, and we've read those in your submission. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Nixon?
Yeah, thanks, Son. I understand that overcast conditions actually don't reduce UV levels to any great extent. I just wondered with shade cloth, how much UV does the shade cloth filter out?
Right, thanks for the question. So UV actually, well, it doesn't matter if it's a cloudy day or a rainy day, UV still penetrates cloud. But again, it really depends on the UPF factor of the cloth, the shade sail cloth itself. So every shade sail cloth will come with a label that has a UPF factor, which is an ultraviolet protective factor. So depending on that percentage of a UPF, it is able to prevent penetration of UV rays. So that's something to look at, which is the UPF labeling.
Do you have a recommendation for the level of UPS that we should be aiming for?
Yes, 90%.
90%,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Nixon? Well, thank you, Crystal. That doesn't seem to be any other questions, and you'll be delighted to see the beautiful new shade sails going up in the Havelock North Village Green. And seeing everybody out there on Sunday, it was fantastic to see the play area with those. So that's very, very important for us. So thank you for your submission today. Right. So officers, I think we now move on to the recommendations and reasons. Page 85. So is there anything else you'd like to add, or I'll take you through?
Shall I take you through each one? I've got a slide for each one.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, Alex.
So I will start with part one of the objectives and policies, Whai Oranga, promoting healthy activity. And this is starting on page 22 of the report.
As we do it here.
So we received one submission on section 1.1 park use, submission 2, and my recommendation, and the submission relates to the terminology relating to water infrastructure. My recommendation is that the submission be disallowed. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. No questions.
So moving on to section 1.3 dogs, we received 3 submissions, and submissions related to dog waste bins and signage and dogs on the park. And my submission and my recommendation is that the submissions be allowed in terms of signage and dogs on the park, and disallowed in terms of dog waste bins not being provided in the park. Are there any questions?
Yes, Councillor Barrow?
Just maybe the new councillors would like to know as well, but when it comes to what is allowed and disallowed, what exactly does that terminology mean?
Yeah, sure. So we'll be just following through through you, Your Worship. We'll just be following, so if you go to page 22 on the officer report, and we'll just be moving through each remedy. So all the submissions that have been received have been grouped into different remedies. So we group like submissions together. And so the analysis part of that, of Alex's report, basically says what the submitter has asked for and officer's analysis of that submission, and that will give the reasons for the recommendation. And then the recommendation that you'll see for Remedy 1 in section 4.11, it'll either say allowed in full, and then there'll either be allowed in full and no changes made to the plan if that person has made a submission in support, or it will be allowed in part if we are allowing part of that submission and changing part of the plan to recognise what they've asked for, or it will be disallowed in full, and there'll be a reason. And so if we just, for this one, the schools have asked for additional waste bins for dogs, and what we're saying is disallowed in part insofar as the dog waste bins are typically only provided in parks that have got off-lead dog areas, and rubbish bins are already available in the park. And so it's sort of a combination of whether we're allowing it in full or allowing it in part.
Your Worship. Having said that, you're very welcome to change any of those recommendations. So
Yeah, and
this is up to you, because you're going to be, confirming them or not. So if you wish to, don't agree with the officer's comments, then you're very welcome to change those recommendations. These are the officer's recommendations. Councillor Kerr?
Your Worship, I think the question is really around the terminology. So if we remove the word disallowed and said agreed or disagreed or agreed in part, it's just, I appreciate it's the terminology of the reserve management, it's the terminology of the process we must go through.
Correct. It's part of the terminology that we've adopted in reserve management plans, and it just allows us to allow or disallow in part or in full. And as mentioned by Worship, is that these are officers' recommendations. The reason for the recommendations is included in the officer report. We'll be going through these relatively quickly because there's quite a few of them, but absolutely if there's any questions on the reasons why officers have made that recommendation, please ask. And also these are officer recommendations, and so they can be changed by councillors.
Take your time, you're able to read them and ask any questions.
And
Councillor Dixon, sorry?
Sorry, and how it will work at the end is we'll go through them. So now is the time to ask questions on any of the individual remedies, but at the end is when we'll be asking councillors to move and second each of the remedies at the end.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Rachel and Alex, do you believe we've got sufficient rubbish bins within the park and they're in suitable locations?
Yes, we did receive some feedback during the community engagement that there are insufficient rubbish bins. So there is money set aside in the budget for new park furniture. When we develop facilities such as a sensory garden, we'll be placing new bins in there and at the entrance. So there will be the opportunity to add more bins in appropriate locations as we move through the works program.
Yeah, thank you. That was the answer. Thank you.
Yes, I just wonder, is there any difference the way we dispose of the dog bins, if I can call them that, as against the general run, or does it all just go out the same stream? Because if it goes out the same stream, there doesn't seem to be much point in having different bins. Yeah, I couldn't find that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, thank you. Just in regards to the submission of Michael Smiley and saying dogs on leash or unleashed, have we considered a particular area within the park that there could be off lead? Or does that just create other issues around sort of making it more of a formal dog park?
Very difficult in Frimley, so we don't allow dogs on sports fields and also within proximity to a children's playground, so it just gets very difficult in Frimley Park just because of the presence of those two.
Right, thank you. No further questions on that one. Thank you.
So we received 2 submissions relating to section 1.5 cycling, submission 6 and submission 13. The submissions related to requesting no cycling in Frimley Park and also requesting bicycle parking facilities on both park frontages. So my recommendations are the submission relating to no cycling on the park be disallowed, and the submission relating to bicycle parking facilities be allowed. Are there any questions?
No questions on that one. Okay, comfortable with that? All right, restricted activities.
So we received 1 submission relating to section 1.7 restricted activities. The submission from Fire Emergency New Zealand, submission 17, requesting that a new policy be added requiring relating to lighting fires on the park, and my recommendation is that this submission be allowed. Are there any questions?
Okay.
So just,
thank you, Rachel.
And so where a new policy there is shown in red, so what that means is the officers are recommending that the submission be allowed and that a new policy be added to the plan to recognise that that's what's been recommended to be added.
Excellent. Everyone comfortable with that? All right, remedy 5, which is building and structures, and this is about Susan Tidswell and Richard Bradshaw about the new aquatic strategy being developed.
Yes, so we received 3 submissions relating to section 2.2, submissions, 2 submissions relating to wanting to know the future of the aquatic centre, submission 4 and submission 5, and a submission requesting no more buildings or structures on the park. My recommendation is that the submissions relating to the aquatic centre be allowed, and that a new aquatic strategy will be developed, and the submission relating to no new buildings or structures be disallowed. Are there any questions?
I'm just saying that after the weekend out in Havelock North with the Manu bombing competition, the first of an annual event, there's going to be a great deal of requirements for us to turn our recreational pools into places for people to have fun. So it actually changed the way people are using our pools, because it is all about kids having something to do.
Your Worship, may I provide a clarification?
Yes.
So while the aquatic centre is on the park, it didn't form part of this management plan because it's managed under the community facilities team. So that team will be the ones who will be carrying out the aquatic strategy. So that's just clarifies how it sits within the management plan.
Yes, thank you. Simon?
Yeah, I acknowledge the comments you've just made, but we spent quite a bit of money on Frimley when I first got on council, maybe 10 years ago, and because the comment was made, it should be heated, but I thought it was heated. I thought we put heating in.
No.
We didn't.
No, we didn't.
We didn't, because it used to have heating at one stage.
No, it's not heated.
That's right.
Wendy?
Answers that.
Thank you. Just a process question. So, Ms. Tidswell, submission, will that be passed on to the community facilities team for consideration in that aquatic strategy?
Thank you, Wendy.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And I was going to ask that, thanks, Wendy, but also the Cancer Society picked up strongly as well, so it'd be great if that could, all of those swimming pool issues could be teamed up and passed over to the other team. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins?
Yes, thank you. Just in relation to proposed bollards closer to the footpath, if you're going to do that, please take into consideration the angle parking options that have been put forward, because that could well restrict what you do with angle parking.
We haven't got to that yet.
Okay, moving on. Thank you. And now we have the second part, which is David Renoff's submission, submission 6.
Are there any questions on submission 6, requesting no new buildings or structures on the park? My recommendation is that this submission is disallowed.
So in terms of his submission being disallowed, insofar as what is he requesting? Pardon?
The submission is requesting that there are no new buildings on the park.
Right.
And the plan provides for a number of buildings and structures, including a new toilet facility,
yes,
pergolas, etc.
Okay, all right, thank you. Remedy 6, which is fences and walls.
We received 2 submissions relating to section 2.3 fences and walls. Submission 11 requested that bollards be placed closer to the footpath when the bollard and chain fence is replaced. My recommendation is that be allowed. And a second submission, submission 14, requesting that the design of the mural on the aquatic centre wall be based on the heritage or landscape on the heritage of the park. My recommendation is that submission be allowed. Are there any questions?
People comfortable with that one? Great, thank you. Playgrounds, remedy 7. This is from the principal, Tim White of Frimley School, Cheryl Latty from the Hastings Rose Society, Chris Ford from the Disabled Persons Assembly, and the submission from Rainey Sheeper. If you'd like to just take us through that one.
Yes, so the submissions supported the playground, and there was also a submission opposing the playground expansion, and a submission requesting barbecues and shade near the playground. An overview of the playground proposal. The plan proposes that the playground be extended with 3 play pieces catering to older children in particular, with a landscape barrier that you can see there in the artist's concept between the playground and the road to reduce the risk of children running from the playground onto the road. The idea is that that's a landscape barrier with seating to provide additional seating area.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Sholin?
Thank you. Just a clarification point around 4.56, around barbecues not being included within the draft plan, which I understand the rationale behind that given the maintenance cost associated with that. Interested to understand if the draft plan wording, and I'm sorry I couldn't find it myself, completely precludes barbecues in the future or leaves the door open should some organisation offer to fund it in some way, or the community gets in behind it in some way. So just interested to know whether or not the door's shut or if there's wiggle room later.
The plan is always held under review. Mm-hmm. So there is a policy within the plan allowing the plan to be reviewed. Given the mix in feedback during the community engagement relating to the barbecues, any requests for a barbecue would likely go out to consultation to get more feedback around whether the community is comfortable with it or not. So the answer is that the door is partially shut. It's not provided for in this plan, but there's always opportunity for it to be opened in future if there's the support in the community for it.
Thank you.
I was just processing that answer. That seems a really high bar if, for example, the Lions Club wish to put a barbecue in and maintain it. seems a very high bar for us to amend our plan by going out and consulting, where a slight tweaking of the words at this stage may allow it to become an officer's decision. So I just want to raise that. I don't need an answer on it. My question was regard to the investment in the playground. I understand that we have our playground strategy or budget for the next so many years as playgrounds come up for renewal and reinvestment. Just want to make sure that the funding of this investment is not going to take funds away from another playground that might be due for investment. And I think about St Leonard's Park, that's very minimal. Thank you.
So St Leonard's Park is already in the annual plan?
Just through your worship, I think it's really important for all the councillors, particularly new councillors, to also remember the RMP sets out the ultimate goal for this park. It has some indicative timings, but this is not the time and place to agree on the exact timing. Council needs to consider all playground renewals, upgrades, and other investment alongside its wider annual plan and long-term process, and always has the ability to rephase, reorganise. The plan sets out the ultimate direction. It gives some indication of timings, but it's not a commitment to deliver on those timings because you need the ability to work through your wider financial situation.
Craig?
Yes, thank you. I'm a little bit concerned that we're accepting or taking recommendations on things that are at quite a significant sum of money for the number of people that have actually inputted into those. So with older children wanting new equipment, what numbers are we talking about that have actually asked for that?
We have those numbers?
We don't have specific numbers around the number of people who have requested that. It was a strong theme that came through in our community engagement process that was undertaken at the beginning of this process in March last year. So the strong themes were picked up and brought through into the draft plan.
And what impact does that have on the environment of what the current playground is as well? Because, you know, it may be that actually the playground as it is and for the age that it suits, how does adding additional equipment that's not necessarily suitable for them, how does that sort of play out?
Yeah, the play pieces were chosen to provide challenge to older children, but they will also provide play value for all ages, except perhaps the tiny tots. But even they would be able to use that mouse wheel that you can see on the bottom right. So the bottom right shows the 3 play pieces that have been chosen, and the artist's image shows the location of where the plan proposes they go, just to the back of the existing playground footprint there. So the play pieces can be used by all ages. That carousel to the left can be used in different ways. Kids can sit on it or stand on it. In terms of the playground hierarchy, this playground is a key urban playground, and the size of the playground with these additional pieces still fits within what we'd anticipate a key urban playground would offer. And this has been chosen based on that feedback from the community and in recognition of the schools around the park as well, as the fact that the park is a destination for people from across the district.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbyn?
I realise we're talking about capital expenditure here with these playgrounds, but the other side of it is funding for maintenance. And I'm just wondering what we're doing about that. And in particular, I talk about the Havelock Pools last weekend for the Manu competition. I was really surprised to see the furniture and so on. It could have done with a nice coat of paint over the winter, which doesn't cost much. So we haven't done the painting, but we're talking about significant sums of money here on new equipment. I'm just wondering how that reconciles.
Craig, you might be able to answer that for us.
That's a very good question. And that, I guess, is one of the challenges for council, and is you meet it every 3 years in particular when we do the long-term plan, where we lay in front of you, and these, this capital works as part of that. They will be part of that offering that you will consider how much it's cost, and we also have what it costs to look after it, and that, if you like, determines what you can afford or what our community can afford. And that also goes back out to the community for their feedback as well. It is a challenge, and we raised it earlier in the year with the current year's budget, that things are pretty tight, inflation's high, but all of those figures come back for you for your consideration. In terms of the swimming pool, I can't comment on that. It's looked after by the community facilities group, but we can seek an answer on that.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, if we can't afford the paint for the furniture, can we afford the capital expenditure?
So the team who look after community facilities aren't here today, so I think that's an email, so we can follow up with that to understand what budget is available in some of these community assets to ensure that they are kept into the standard and level that we'd like them to be. So, okay, now moving on to playgrounds. No, just done playgrounds. Where are we up to? We're up to informal sport and recreation.
Yes, so we received 3 submissions relating to section 2.6, informal sport and recreation, submissions 13, 19 and 2. My recommendation, the submissions related to provision of adult fitness equipment. My recommendation is that the submissions be allowed and disallowed, as the adult fitness equipment should be provided as proposed. Are there any questions?
Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Toilets and changing facilities.
We received 2 submissions relating to the proposed toilet facility, submission 19 and submission 11. The plan proposes that the existing toilet facility be relocated. So that is a photo, obviously, of the existing toilet facility. It's a 2-bay toilet facility. It's set back behind the playground and amongst mature trees. The draft plan proposes that this facility be removed and a new 2-bay toilet facility constructed closer to Frimley Road, as shown by the number 4 on that plan. So the existing toilet facility was refurbished in 2015. The reason for removal and a new toilet facility is to improve access, and particularly for users of the rose gardens. We've heard that the location of a toilet facility, or the lack of a toilet facility near the entrance to the rose gardens, can be a barrier to people visiting the rose gardens. Also, in our crime prevention through environmental design report, there's a recommendation that the toilet facility be located closer to Frimley Road, which allows for passive surveillance of the entrances from the surrounding environment. The toilet facility is proposed as a medium-term action in the Capital Works program, being constructed after completion of the sensory garden and playground expansion. My recommendation is that the submission be allowed and disallowed, and that the toilet facility is constructed as proposed in the draft plan. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Nixon?
Yeah, I don't have any issue with the need for a new facility, but I did notice one of the submissions, I can't remember which one, talked about the visibility from the houses opposite, and I just wondered if we took that into account. I don't know where it is, but I know I read it last night, and it seemed quite a reasonable point that, you know, one hardly wants a public loo right across the road from where you live, and I just wondered if we could just keep that in mind when we pick our final location and and the way we try to disguise it.
Thank you. I agree, but it's also very important that we can be seen. Safe. Yes, safe. Councillor Watkins?
Thank you. Could we just flick back to the previous slide, please? I just want to check the proposed location. Okay, thank you.
Can I just make a comment, please, on, so we're talking 5 years before we upgrade the toilet block. I think that we need to think about that sooner than that. Being down there on Rose Sunday, seeing the hundreds and hundreds of people on the playground, I don't think our facility is sufficient. The tourism fund is giving money out for toilets. If we could get a design underway and get those earlier than that, I think that, and bring that forward. The tourism fund are funding fully toilets, not much else, but the government's tourism fund are certainly funding toilets. Kevin?
I do. Yeah, thank you. Just location 4, the proposed location, that's virtually where those 2 big gum trees are. So what does that mean? I would never put a new building facility under those gum trees because they're very, very large spread out branches. Or does that number 4 not actually correctly represent where the toilet is proposed to go?
The toilet is not proposed to be directly under the canopy of those trees. If you look under, perhaps I should have clarified, so if you look underneath the 4, there are 2 small squares. That is indicative of the toilet facility. It's very tricky to see. So it's very close to that part. And it's quite an open area, and toilet facilities have a small footprint. So there is space for it to be set well away from that tree canopy.
Right, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we've had some award-winning loos with great designs, so my challenge is to make sure that we are at that level again, please.
Or roll them out instead of recreating. Okay, awesome. So in terms of that direction of talking about the timing, when do you want us to consider that? At the end? Okay, cool. Right, thank you. Now we're up to signs. Remedy 10.
I've got one more on that.
Oh, okay, Elwyn.
Will there be some landscaping around that new location of the toilets to soften it from the road?
Rachel says yes. Thank you. Khan?
Mine's on signage. And
signage, yes.
We just appear to have missed the Cancer Society's submission, which requested smoke-free signage and vape-free signage. Now, I don't need it to be picked up and specifically covered.
It has been picked up in her cancer submission.
Okay, thank you. I haven't got to that one.
Any questions on signage? Okay, park furniture, remedy 11.
So we received 2 submissions on park furniture, submission 16 and submission 19. Submissions related to having separate rubbish and recycling bins and a request for a compost bin. My recommendation is that that submission is allowed in part and that the park be considered for a separate rubbish and recycling bin trial and disallowed and that compost bins will not be provided. And we received a submission requesting that park furniture be use accessible design, and my recommendation is that this submission be allowed and the policy altered to reflect this. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Last one, then we'll break for morning tea. Oh, no, we'll break for morning tea. Remedy 12, and this is vehicle parking. This is quite a big one, so you take us through the vehicle parking so people fully understand what it means in terms of rather than just agree or not agree. We would actually like to fully understand it. Thanks, Alex. Oh, Councillor Kerr?
I just had a question after the presentation on traffic, on vehicles. No, I'll wait till I've presented, thanks.
So we received 8 submissions relating to vehicle parking. So just to outline what is proposed in the draft plan, we heard during community engagement that people were concerned around the lack of parking and traffic safety on Lyndhurst Road frontage during sports events. The draft plan proposes to address this by providing increased angle parking on the park frontage, forming parking spaces on the opposite side with a footpath, and providing traffic calming and crossing points along the frontage, with a note there that the draft plan provides for this. However, technical investigations have recently commenced for the Lyndhurst extension by the planning team, and this may impact the parking yield and traffic calming design, particularly if the property opposite the park is developed for residential housing. So in addition to the parking on this frontage, the draft plan proposes for the mobility parking spaces to be relocated to the entrance, for the swale to be levelled and bollards placed across the frontage to improve the pedestrian access and to prevent vehicle access onto the sports fields, and to complete the shared path, have a shared path extension running from Nottingley Road through to Papawhai Road across the frontage, which will complete the highway network from Papawhai Road through to the sports park, as is shown on the map to the right. And on Frimley Road, the draft plan proposes for parking capacity improvements.
Before you move on, Alex, could we just have that Lyndhurst part, one map? Can we have that brought up, the map? To show what the remedy is.
Show the remedy?
Yes.
So
The map, I think.
The map.
The map, that one.
this one? Right. So this, so on the right-hand side, this shows a concept plan of that frontage with increased angle parking highlighted in grey, dark grey here and through here. There is already some existing angle parking, forming parking on this side with a footpath. As I mentioned before, this may be altered by the technical investigations currently underway, but this is what the plan provides for. And the orange is the shared path extension running across the park frontage. And then on the left-hand side is the artist's impression of what the parking would look like with the increased angle parking, formed parking with the footpath on the opposite frontage, on the opposite side, and a crossing point and traffic calming.
In the cycleway?
You can just see inside, between the tree and the sports field, the shared path runs on the inside, as is inadequate space on the road corridor.
It's not a separate cycle path?
It's a shared path.
It's a shared path?
Shared path,
right.
Yes, so at the moment...
so it's off-road?
It's off-road shared path, so it actually runs through the park. So at the moment, this is the sports park here, and the green shows the existing shared path, which terminates here at Nottingley Road. And so the draft plan proposes for the shared path to be extended along Lyndhurst Road, across the park frontage, and through to Papawhai Road here, where there's an on-road cycle path.
Cool. Oh, that looks very good, thank you.
And then on Frimley Road, the plan proposes for the parking spaces outside the park to be marked for efficiency gains, but to retain the parallel parking configuration, and for a small parking area to be placed outside the aquatic centre for the benefit of the park and the centre. There would also be mobility parking spaces marked on the Frimley Road frontage, and drop curbs put in at these locations to improve accessibility from the road into the park. So we received, as I mentioned, a number of submissions. So a number of the submissions related to areas outside of the park frontage, so the area outside of the Frimley shops and the area outside of Frimley Primary School. My recommendation is that these submissions be allowed in part, in that the transportation team's undertaking a school safety project which will address the whole of the school catchment. So there'll be a speed limit review and traffic calming, and that speed limit review needs to be completed by June 2024, with the traffic calming completed by that point as well. So that sits outside the scope of the management plan, but is allowed in that, those submissions are allowed in that, that project will address those concerns. But also the submissions relating to the area, the beautification of the area outside the shops be disallowed, and that's outside the scope of this plan.
Thank you. It may be that, the owners of the shops, just as has happened in the past, bring something back through the annual plan process. Can we send a recommendation to them for that, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
I have a question regarding the ability of families to park on a weekend outside Frimley Park on Frimley Road. There was a comment made that hospital staff are parking on the roads between the hospital and Frimley Road. So is that just an issue? I'm just trying to understand if we need to put some time limits, or whether the hospital parking is only Monday to Friday, leaving the weekends free for parking for families.
Yes.
To undertake a parking study to understand what Frimley Road looks like, and because we're at this stage, none of us know how often, when, who, so that could be a recommendation.
Or follow-up question is, could that be covered when the school area traffic management study is done?
So the school's one thing, but you're talking about outside the playground, which is the rest of Frimley Road.
Because from my point of view, it could be a recommendation out of here that included in that school study was the traffic parking study.
May I provide a clarification? So
Thank you.
I have spoken to the transportation team, who advised that along Frimley Road out on the park frontage, there isn't the need for angle parking there.
Right.
So they have advised that that is not required at this stage.
Okay.
However, it can be monitored and investigated in the future if necessary, but they've confirmed that angle parking is not required there at this point. However, they did say that they are doing the school safety project, which includes the catchment of the school. So there will be that whole part of Frimley Road from the school down to the shops will be addressed in terms of a speed limit review and traffic calming to investigate options there, but not a change to the number of parking spaces provided at this stage.
Thank you. Rachel?
If I can just add to that, some of the councillors may recall we had exactly the same conversation when we wrote or prepared the Cornwall Park Reserve Management Plan, and put in that premier playground, and submissions that came in from Robert Street residents who requested consideration of angle parking in Robert Street. We made provision in that plan to just see how it went and keep the parallel parking, because as our traffic engineers say, actually parallel parking is safer than angle parking when children are involved. And to date, we haven't had that need to go back and readdress the angle parking need in Robert Street, and that's our premier playground. So I think that the same consideration, that's what our traffic engineers are saying at the moment. Let's just leave it for now. There's not a need to do it at the moment, but we can certainly address that in the future if we need to.
Follow-up question, Councillor Kerr?
I wasn't actually asking about angle parking, I was asking about time limiting hospital staff parking. That's where I was coming from, and maybe Craig might be able to.
So, yes, through you, Worship, Alex has spoken to the transport team who have gone out and done that assessment, and basically said that during the hours that they have looked at, that there hasn't been an issue with the availability of parking during the day for parents wanting to access that playground.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon?
Yeah, my observation suggests the parking team have got that one right. It seems to be mostly a weekday problem, and the park doesn't get as much use. But I do generally support the provision of angle parking where possible, because it does increase the capacity, And I just draw attention to what has happened in both Tomato Road and Napier Road in Havelock North, where we have a combination of parallel and angle parking. And frankly, it seems to work real well. It's when you've got angle parking both sides it becomes a problem, because then cars have a habit of banging into the backs of each other.
Very wide, very, very wide, those roads.
Yes, they are wide, and I didn't
Yes.
think of that. I didn't
Okay.
mention it.
Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just going back to the parking on Frimley Road, I don't believe there's any hospital cars park on Frimley Road at all. So they mainly park on Nottingham Road, Ikanui Road, Karadiana Road, those feeder roads. That's where they tend to park. The problem with parking on Frimley Road is there's Girls High School and Lindisfarne College and Frimley school car parks. They haven't got sufficient in any of the schools to provide for their staff and their pupils. So that's the major problem on Frimley Road during 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock. And just going back to that other diagram you had of the playing fields, that one there, that's Frimley Park. On the other side of the road is the farm, which is owned by Lindisfarne College. What provision have they made for car parking on the farm? Because there's 4 playing fields there.
May I clarify?
Thank you,
That one. So the sports field is leased by Lindisfarne, is privately owned, and as I mentioned, the technical investigations are underway for the Lyndhurst extension, which may result in that land, the use of that land changing to residential properties.
Yes, because that's the major reason why the car parks along Lyndhurst Road are taken up, particularly at the weekend. It's the sports being played on the farm.
Okay, thank you. So then, Councillor Corbyn?
I'm just wondering whether any consideration has been given to a pick-up and drop-off zone there. And I'm going back to when I was a dad and dropping kids there for sport on a Saturday morning, and it was one set of games would be finishing and another set starting, and there's sort of a quarter of an hour on each side overlap and a huge demand for parking. But if parents could drop off their kids, go away for 20 minutes, car parks would be free. They could come back and find a park. And also with grandparents, etc., with walkers or wheelchairs or whatever, I know there's a ratio for mobility parks, etc., but if they were full, you could drop your dad off with his walker, go and park and then come back. So my question is there capacity for pick-up and drop-off zones?
Is there the capacity outside or not? Or pick up and drop off? Look at what, yes, we can look at that with the detailed design. Excellent. All right, and I think that it's probably helpful to, when we respond to the submitters, people like Michael Smiley, just to say that we are going to carefully monitor the Frimley Road and what is happening with the school assessment and that sort of thing. So we're not just going, this is not done once, it's carefully monitoring how this is all going to work. All right, so thank you everyone. Now break for a cup of tea. Oh, sorry, just before we go, Craig.
Thank you, Your Worship. Prior to me getting here, I understand there was a question around traffic volumes in and around the park. So just having a quick look and some info from the transport team. So Frimley Road in 6th of February 21, there was 3,300 people just east of the field, so near where the water treatment plant is, and the cars, at 85% of the vehicles were travelling below 51 kilometres an hour. Towards the shop a year earlier, in and around the holiday period, 20th of January 22, there were 3,700 vehicles at 47 kilometres an hour, so 85% of people going under that. And Lyndhurst Road on the 14th of February 21, there was 3,852 vehicles going slightly faster at 55k, but pretty good compliance compared to a lot of urban streets that we have.
Great, thank you. All right, so now we'll take a break for morning tea. Alex and Rachel, could you Haere mai. Please be seated. Kia ora koutou. Resume our meeting, our council meeting today. We are at remedy 13, accessibility. Thank you. Alex?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are a few more submissions relating to remedy 12 that I would like to cover off, please. We received a submission requesting that no parking be provided for on the park, submission 6. My recommendation is that the submission be allowed in that the main area of the park doesn't provide for any parking. However, a small parking area is provided for outside the aquatic centre. We received a submission requesting a crossing point on Frimley Road, submission 13. And my recommendation is that this submission be allowed as it relates to the school safety project. We received a submission number 10 regarding Lyndhurst Road and requesting that the speed hump shown on the concept plan be relocated and requesting that power lines be undergrounded and a footpath provided for on the opposite side of the road. My recommendation is that the submission be allowed in part in that footpaths will be provided for on both sides of the road and disallowed in part insofar as speed humps will be provided for on this part of the road and that power lines will not be undergrounded. Now I just note that an officer has just gone to this submitter was not able to come and speak in person, has asked for an email to be read out, and an officer's just gone to retrieve that. So I will just move on from that one and we can come back to it, if that's okay. We received a submission requesting angle parking on Frimley Road, submission 14, which is, my recommendation is that this is allowed in part and that it be considered in future. And we received submission 16 requesting closure of the road outside Frimley Primary School. My recommendation is that this is disallowed and that this will create more problems than it's attempting to solve. However, it's allowed in part and that it will be addressed, the road outside the school will be addressed as part of the school safety project. We received a submission number 19 requesting mobility parking spaces and drop curves on both frontages, and my recommendation and consideration given for a drop-off zone for vans. My recommendation is that this submission be allowed and a new policy added as shown there.
Councillor Kerr?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just looking at that new policy being added, 2.10.7, provide mobility parking spaces, which I completely support, together with consideration of drop-off zone for vans. Given a previous speaker requested an ability to have drop-off areas for dropping children to sport and back, could this policy be tweaked so that it said together with consideration of drop-off zones, full stop? Or with, so it's not just for vans, but it's for drop-off zones, and all it has is consideration, so we're not fixing it in.
Comfortable with that direction? Yes? Lovely, thank you. Right, so nothing else on vehicle parking. We move on now to remedy 13, accessibility.
Your Worship, Vicky's just dropped off that email from the submitter who wasn't able to speak.
Oh, yes, thank you.
So my apologies that this is later on in the order. I will just read this out. This is from Mary Booker. I'll just find her submission number for you, submission 10. Which is on page 21 of. Ms. Brooker wasn't able to attend and she has sent this email. In particular, my concerns are what exactly the traffic calming measures on Lyndhurst Road will entail. It appears from the artist's sketch and the plan that they will be directly outside of my house, 215 Lyndhurst Road. I am concerned that they will create noise and or vibrations to my property. I therefore wondered if they could be moved further along Lyndhurst Road so that they were between the two playing fields. I also wonder if horizontal rather than vertical traffic calming measures would be a better option, though I have no expertise in these matters. I think that it is essential that there is a footpath on both sides of the road. This was drawn in the artist's impression but not clear from the plan. The pedestrian crossing should be placed at a position that people are most likely to use them, particularly on Saturday morning when the road is hectically busy with children's sports. It also occurred to me that while work was being done on Lyndhurst Road, it could be an option to place the power lines underground. Hopefully these thoughts can be taken into consideration.
Okay, any questions on that?
Yes. The moving of the proposed vehicle crossing from, on the map, it was at the top of the map, to a more suitable pedestrian-friendly crossing. Have those been considered or can they be reviewed?
Yes, so as the concept plan shows a speed hump here, the lower one which is outside of the submitter's house here, and a second one here. Now this is a concept design and the transportation team advised that the speed humps are the appropriate traffic calming measure for this road at this stage.
Okay.
However, when we come to detailed design, it may result in those speed humps being moved, depending on what the engineering recommends. So, and as I mentioned earlier, the technical investigations into the Lyndhurst Extension Structural Plan may also result in changes to the land use on this part of the road, which may result in a change to configuration as well. So based on the advice that the speed humps don't actually create noise or vibrations if they're well designed, my recommendation is that the speed humps remain as shown on the concept plan with the potential that they may change in future.
Yep, and thank you. And we will be having a community meeting anyway with the engineering team, with all those residents in terms of signing off on the design, detailed design concept.
Great.
Councillor Watkins, just looking at you. Right, thank you. Tan, have you completed your, right? Simon?
Yeah, actually, I would uphold that email that you had from the person in Frimley Road. I often coffee down at Hawthorns. Now we've got some quite what would be called gentle speed humps there. The din is unbelievable. You get a truck going across or a trailer or something, there's crashing and banging and going. I don't think the advice we've got is actually right. And I would like to put my thought in that we take it into account, considering that just down the road there's parks both sides, which means if it was there, it would be less noisy for anybody living in the area.
Councillor Nixon's correct that vehicles can create noise in speed humps, so the design is really, really important. And I think, as Alex has talked about, as the detailed design comes together and with the work for the Lyndhurst Extension concept, the final location does need to be worked through to confirm, and we do need to talk to the community, as Her Worship's talked about with the streetscape. Vibrations, it shouldn't cause any issues if designed appropriately, but if you have trucks with empty decks, they will rattle and roll. And the other issue you get despite design is if those who are unsavoury traffic users decide to scream up to them, hit their brakes and accelerate hard on the other side, you do generally get noise. So they do need to be worked through carefully, but it should all be workable in the speed environment.
Great, thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I understand speed humps. That the issue we've got in this road, Lyndhurst Road, is probably 6 hours a week. What is the vehicle numbers for Lyndhurst Road? You've got those there, Craig?
So Lyndhurst annual daily traffic, so this is a 7-week average, was 3,852, and that was the second week of February in 21, that count.
I mean, it is a sort of pretty clear free road for traffic to move, and I always feel that speed humps would be the absolute last resort. Other calming measures, chicanes possibly, but speed humps actually physically slows vehicles down for a lot of the week when there's no necessity to slow them down.
Through you, Your Worship, apologies I haven't talked to the team, but just from this discussion, I'm wondering if the plan should just refer to traffic calming devices. Speed hump is an option. It might be the appropriate option, but at least it gives us the opportunity to look at other options rather than choosing one single option.
Completely support that, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Can I clarify that policy 2.10.5 says increased parking capacity along Lyndhurst Road with associated traffic calming measures, which does provide flexibility for the detailed design.
Could I just ask that we also
Feedback to the submitter, with that relevant feedback to that submitter. Thank you.
well, you might have just said it, just that we acknowledge that email
Yes.
to say we have
yes,
taken it.
so-
Is that what you said?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Councillor Sholin?
Just clarity, while I'm supportive of what's being discussed, I'm also conscious that said artwork of speed humps is also acting as crossings, so just wanting to make sure that we don't lose that in the process of whatever review's going on, so I think crossings along those roads are quite important.
Okay, thank you. So we've got Path Networks, Remedy 14.
Remedy 13, section 2.11, accessibility.
Oh, yes, thank you.
We received 2 submissions relating to accessibility. The first was from Fire and Emergency New Zealand, submission 17, requesting specific provision be made in the plan for emergency services to access the park. My recommendation is that the submission be allowed and the section and policies altered as shown. And we received a submission, number 19, from the Disabled Persons Assembly, requesting that facilities, that the draft plan facilitates increased access for users with disabilities across the spectrum. And my recommendation is that this submission be allowed. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Kerr?
Compliments on the change of the wording to change from service to authorised, but just to clarify, authorised may mean a disabled person has been in contact with council, got a key, being able to get in and access. Great, thank you.
So that sensory garden is going to be really, really important for our community with disability, and so I think that's very helpful, enabling them to be getting access and safe. That's very good, because it's really, really special to them. Councillor Watkins?
Thank you. Just in terms of the fire service, if they wanted to enter the park from Frimley Road, Do they have keys to the gates? They do. Thank you.
We received 3 submissions relating to section 2.12 path networks. Submission 8 requested a new path on the residential side of the sports fields connecting to the Rose Gardens. My recommendation is that that submission be allowed and that community consultation be undertaken to determine whether the residents would support a path in that location as a long-term action in the plan. And we received submissions from the Hastings Rose Society and the Disabled Persons Assembly supporting the path network extensions for users with mobility restrictions, including around the Rose Garden. And my recommendation is that those submissions be allowed. Are there any questions?
No further questions? No? Thank you.
Moving on to part 3. Starting with section 3.1, trees and gardens, we received a number of submissions relating to trees and gardens. Just an overview of what the draft plan provides. So currently the park contains 21 notable trees, with many trees planted by the Williams family in the 19th century. The Arboricultural Report identified 7 trees of national and international significance in the park, in addition to those 21 trees. The draft plan proposes that Indigenous species be included in the canopy succession planning while retaining exotic parkland character. And the Arboricultural Report highlighted the ecosystem services provided by the tree assets and recommended improved asset management over the lifespan of these assets in relation to planting and aftercare, formative pruning and mulching, and monitoring of herbicide use. Moving on to the necklace poplar, which is a notable tree within the park and the most well-known tree. It's approximately 150 years old, previously the largest deciduous tree in New Zealand, the tallest of its species and with the largest girth in the district. The tree has been significantly reduced in the last 5 years, and it has a marked lean towards over a path with temporary fencing restricting access into the full zone of that lean. A number of seedlings have been placed, sourced from the tree, have been planted nearby in the last 15 years. It's the most heavily monitored tree in the district with related management costs. The tree has regular surveys for movement at approximately $700 per survey. Arborist reports cost approximately $4,000. There are regular visual inspections by our contractors. The most recent reduction cost $20,000 with further reduction estimated at $10,000, obviously depending on the scale of the reduction. The community engagement feedback identified that there were concerns around the tree due to safety and the amount of space it takes up. As I mentioned, we have regular surveys of the tree, and following the survey in February this year, we commissioned Arborlab to provide a report. Arborlab have been involved in management of the tree in the last 5 years or so, and they identified that the survey undertaken in February shows movement consistent with the direction of the lean, and that load reduction pruning has been insufficient to limit further development of cracks in the trunk.
And Councillor Marcus Butto, our very own arborist and advisor, has been to investigate on Sunday when we opened up the Laurie Cook Park and has advised that the tree's dead. And you'd be struggling to carve anything out of it.
So this slide shows on the left, it shows the survey points that we have attached to the tree. The 2 photos on the top right show the tree in 1999 and then 20 years later with the lean which is developed. The photos are taken from the same angle. And then below again it's just showing the direction of the lean over the path which is closed off by the temporary fencing. So the Arborlab report following the survey results undertaken in February provided 4 options. The first option was to monitor the tree until next year, retaining the temporary fencing, and then use that additional information to inform decisions. The second option was to move the path and reduce the height of the tree so that a failure event would not impact on the path, which would allow the temporary fencing to be removed. And so the photograph bottom left shows that the reduction that was recommended as part of option 2. Option 3 is was to reduce the tree so if it fails it will not impact the path as it currently stands. Essentially pollarded, and it's option 3 shown there, the approximate reduction. And option 4 was to remove the tree entirely and elevate the progeny of the tree as shown by the red dots below.
Reduce the height to ground level.
And I should mention that option 2, moving the path, the estimate for that was $50,000, along with the ongoing monitoring of the tree costs. So option 4 was adopted by the Eco District Subcommittee at the workshop for inclusion in the draft plan, and no submissions were received opposing the inclusion of this policy. So we didn't receive any submissions opposing removal of the tree. We received one submission requesting that part of the tree be retained as a climbing frame, and my recommendation is that we received submissions supporting removal of the tree. My recommendation is that those submissions be allowed, and the submission requesting retention of the tree for a climbing frame be disallowed due to the costs. However, a further option for consideration is that if part of the tree is retained, it could be retained for informal play and exploration. It could be retained to be a whimsical play feature. An example is shown there on the left, which is just a simple fairy door. The poplar tree is quite close to the path, which it will have the story walk on it. So there could be the opportunity to provide to build on that theme by putting a small fairy door network through the park. And a further option is retaining part of the trunk as a sculpture. Obviously there are costs associated with this depending on the design and assessment of the state of the stump, which we know contains a level of rot. Just some broad estimates for carving and inspection, $10,000 to $20,000. And then there would be ongoing asset management costs of approximately $1,000 per annum for inspection, sucker removal and rot management. So my recommendation on the submissions, so we received a number of submissions supporting the sensory garden, and my recommendation is that these submissions be allowed, as well as submissions requesting Indigenous species be placed in the park.
Questions on the tree, starting with Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm no arborist, and I'm pleased that Marcus had a look at it. I've also been to have a look at it, and I couldn't get over how much it deteriorated in the last 5 or 6 years. My question is, how soon can it be removed? And when? Because it's dangerous and it's rotten on the inside.
Okay. Is that a good question, Colin?
We would require a resource consent, let's say 4 weeks, if, or we, according to our plan, a resource consent from ourselves, and I would think you'd probably get it done late in January if you're talking. After school's gone back. Yeah. After school's gone back, when the place is quietened down a bit, which is probably February to be truthful.
Right.
That would be the earliest and most practicable.
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yeah. How much will the resource consent for the demolition of the tree cost? Because the costs seem to be getting quite high overall, that we've spent so far. Then I'll express an opinion.
We will probably need some, it might be $500 to $1,000.
Oh, okay.
We'll also need to probably have supporting documentation for the planners from an arborist agreeing with that course of action. So maybe $2,000.
$500 sounds like a very good investment, and even if it goes to 2,000, it still sounds like a very good investment. You read occasionally overseas, where trees fall on people and people get killed, and I just feel we're at the stage that this tree.
Look, we had a really good conversation about this at the
Yes, we
workshop,
did.
so I don't actually think we need to go into detail of this. So those other speakers, is there any different opinions?
Perhaps if I could, through you, Your Worship, if we were to go ahead and remove it, it will still be a heck of a lot less than some form of sustained maintenance regime that we're going through at the moment.
Other speakers? Councillor Kerr, have you got anything different to add than what's been said?
Just to clarify a couple of points, if I may. There were no submissions in support of keeping the tree and continuing to invest in the tree and removing it. Thank you. And if this council was in mind to have the tree removed, is what we've got in our reserve management plan sufficient? So this is about approving this reserve management plan and then simply letting the process proceed. Thank you. Happy to support the remedy.
Thank you.
We call it the recommendation.
So if we could just add those recommendations, Alex, to perhaps the recommendations that we'll come to in a minute. Councillor Redstone?
Thank you. Just a commentary on leaving it there for a play structure. It's rotting. It will continue to rot. It will cost us a lot of money to move it at some point. So that's one thing. The other thing is it's not a carving timber. Poplar is absolutely useless for carving. So I think we're doing the right thing and I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Redstone. Councillor Sholham?
Yeah, just on recommendation 4.152, which is disallowing, basically saying that the tree will be removed entirely rather than retaining anything for a play piece. I support that, and also support consideration of the wood being made available if it is useful to someone. Just on this whole ferry door idea, whilst it may not be appropriate for this particular tree, I really like the idea, so I'm just going to chuck that out there. If it's something we could do cost effectively, I think that's really lovely, especially given how popular Frimley Park is already for rock hunting and whatnot. So you take away the risk associated with that by having ferry doors throughout.
Councillor Corbin?
Sorry, I may have missed this part of the discussion, but last week Charles had some other suggestions for the wood from the poplar tree other than going to the wood turners, and wonder whether they could be incorporated into the recommendation.
Could you just remind us what those were, please? Because we need to
Well,
identify.
Charles is here.
Thank you, through here. I think from
from memory at the workshop, the recommendation was to, well, the suggestion, not recommendation, was to consider how the wood could be used as a fundraising effort for people to purchase as a memory in line with the 150th anniversary of Hastings. While it is not a wood to be carved, it is actually a very beautiful wood that was usually used in panelling on walls in homes, because it has a beautiful marbling on it. So although it's dead, there are ways that that the wood can be used to create things that people may want to purchase, but it needs some consideration. And to consider how the community may be a part of the removal of the tree, given it is a it's been around for a very long time and has a close association with many people of Hastings.
Okay, thank you. We've got that noted. Great. Thank you very much, Charles. Okay. Thank you. That completes the gardens and trees and gardens.
There's just
one more.
The other submissions, we received submissions in support of the sensory garden. My recommendation is that these submissions be allowed.
Okay, thank you.
We also received submissions in requesting Indigenous trees. We received submissions requesting Indigenous species be included in the park, and my recommendation is that be allowed, and also tree labels, and my recommendation is that be allowed. We received a submission requesting bird feeders, and my recommendation is that is disallowed. And we received submissions relating to removal of several trees across the park, and my recommendation is that this is disallowed as the trees are managed under the ongoing asset management program and tree removal policy.
Any questions on that one? No? Okay, thank you. Remedy 16, 3.3 water.
We received one submission, submission number 6, requesting information regarding the water infrastructure in Frimley Park, and my recommendation is that that submission is allowed.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, Remedy 17, section 3.5, plants and animal pests.
We received one submission relating to pests in the park, and my recommendation is that submission is allowed.
Okay, thank you. Remedy 18, 4.4.
We received 2 submissions relating to commemorative features in the Rose Gardens, requesting that consultation be undertaken with the Rose Society when we have requests for commemorative features in that part of the park, and my recommendation is that those submissions are allowed. And we received a submission relating to the Memorial Sundial, and my recommendation is that that submission is allowed in part, and that the sundial will be repaired and disallowed in part, and that security cameras are not warranted at this stage.
Right, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Kerr?
If we're putting garden furniture, park furniture in and around the Rose Garden, will that be done in consultation with the Rose Society? Thank you.
And also the neighbours, so if you go down, councillors, please take a pad next time you have to go to the Rose Gardens, because I had a big list to deal with after that day. So they're very, very passionate community who live all around the Rose Gardens, and they want to make sure that they're heard. So when we talk about the Rose Society, can we also include the surrounding neighbours in terms of rubbish bin, because there's weddings and all sorts of things on their front lawn, pretty much. They consider that their front lawn, the Rose Gardens. So and they're very passionate. So if, just remind you of that make sure that they're included. Remedy 19, section 3.5, concessions.
We received one submission from Fire and Emergency New Zealand requesting a specific objective and policy requiring consultation, requiring event permission for fires during events, and my recommendation is that this is disallowed.
Any questions on that one? No. Okay, Remedy 21, section 5.12, community partnerships.
If we step back to Remedy 20, section 5.11.
Safety and vandalism.
Safety and vandalism. So we received one submission from the Cancer Society and requesting more shade, smoke-free and vape-free signage, and sun protection policy. My recommendation is that submission be allowed in part, and that the draft plan provides for consideration of shelter from the sun in both the playground section and the park furniture section. Smoke-free signage is already located within the park at a number of locations, and disallowed in that additional policies are considered unnecessary.
Thank you. Any questions? Support. Okay, on to community partnerships. Love this idea.
We received a submission from Michael Smiley requesting a volunteer group, support for a volunteer group in the park, and my recommendation is that this submission be allowed.
Okay, so how do we set up the leadership with that one? We would have a bit of a community hui and people show some expressions of interest and come along. Councillor might like to lead it. Councillor Buddo's very proactive at the moment. And you can bring your pad too. Wendy, you've got enough going on. Okay, but I think that, yeah, it'd be really lovely to have a community hui and just get people engaged in the whole process. Follow up now, what happens next? All right, excellent. All right, so, and then we come to other.
So we received 2 submissions in support of the plan, as I noted earlier, and my recommendation is that these submissions be allowed as there have been no fundamental changes to the draft plan.
Any questions on that one? Those other? A TP?
And then that brings us to the discussion around the capital works program. So the draft plan provided for a 10-year program of works at estimated value of $1,950,000. The submissions altered this by an additional $20,000 for the provision of shade over the seating area in the playground, which is shown here with the new figure in bold, and then with the change to the total reflected here.
Just a question to you, Craig. In terms of some of the infrastructure, like Lyndhurst Road parking, etc., Colin, you might be able to help me with this. So, in terms of the Lyndhurst Road stuff, the roading management, would the DCs cover any of that investment in the future for the new housing if it goes down there?
Ideally, yes. If you put this plan aside, then the answer is a definite yes. The contributions would be required to bring it up to the typical urban scale of development.
Okay.
So it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest, but certainly the DCs would contribute.
So if we're looking at years 2025 and 2026, that could be perfect timing to be able to allocate those development levies.
And there's room there, there's wriggle room there too.
Okay,
that
great.
If Lyndhurst Stage 2 kicks along quickly, then you can align the activities accordingly.
Awesome, thank you. Can I just also, this is the conversation we'd now have, like we talked about toilet blocks and paths, this is the conversation now, looking at the years on that action plan, and it is in the back of your agenda, it's hard to see, if you can't read that, it is on your agenda. So if people would like to bring those forward, those toilets, this is the time that we would want to discuss those. I'll take Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, just a suggestion from me, Your Worship. I see there the toilet block's 300,000 and the additional play and mural is 310,000. Could those two be swapped out and swapped around? I think people would prefer the toilets rather than additional play material because there's a sufficient playground there already.
Rachel or Alex?
Yes, absolutely. This is now the time that if you would like to change any of those priority years, that now is the time to do that. And as we've said, though, all of these items will be up for consideration again next year as part of long-term planning for the next year.
So if we put, I think we should leave the additional play there, and because we are going to be putting that area that we took out for rec services, we are putting additional play in there. So I think we leave that, Malcolm, and we put in the, bring the toilets through to 2024, 2025. Is that going to work for everybody? Yes, thank you. Tan?
Just acknowledging that although we agree to this today, this is still a blueprint and it needs to go through the long-term plan and our budgets for the next. So this may get tweaked. This is ideal.
That's correct. That's correct, Councillor. So absolutely, and what happens with these reserve management plan budgets is we keep bringing them back to you as community desires or the community changes.
but also opportunities come up every now and then for funding coming through from other organisations that can help with it. But what we bring to you at Long Term Plan is an Excel spreadsheet like this that talks about every park, and then you can really start to see in each year what park is getting what upgrade, and which ones are the most important for the whole district.
And through you, may I ask a second question? Have we captured in the recommendations that we request Crown funding for the toilets? Is that captured somewhere? Because I think that's really, really important.
I will have to check that. I understand that tourism fund is largely associated with the Freedom Camping Act. Is it, Colin, with new toilets?
But a lot of councils in New Zealand got toilets that weren't part of camping.
Right.
Yes. So, like, we put
So-
Waiaraha in and we didn't get it because it all went to toilets.
Nonetheless,
Right,
the
okay.
recommendation would be that we request staff to look into Crown funding for the, for the
Yep.
toilets.
We just add that in.
And that doesn't need to be part of the plan, that's.
It's just
A
an extra.
recommendation.
Yep.
So, Vicky, you able to capture that? Thank you. Councillor Fowler?
Yeah, I support bringing the toilets forward, especially if there's going to be activities that are going to generate more people there. I think we need toilets, and it's been covered off about investigating the tourism funding. So,
Councillor Sholem?
In principle, supportive of bringing the toilets forward. I'm just interested to understand why in the proposed budget they were in the year they're in, because bringing it forward seems like an easy thing to do, but I'd like to understand why it was put where it was.
The idea was that the costs associated with the capital works program are spread across the 10 years as much as possible, reflecting the demands on the council budget, as well as allowing officers to have the capacity to deliver these projects. The playground enhancement was linked in with some safety surfacing replacements and other works planned for 24-25, and the other works staged and just in recognition of the feedback from the community around how important they were, with the toilets coming at the end to support the other projects following their completion.
So just to clarify that, you'll see at the top of the table here where we've got existing capital works program, there's already funds sitting there in 24-25, as Alex said, to upgrade the safety surfacing. It makes sense that when we're going in there and running a contract to upgrade safety surfacing and close the playground off, that is the optimal time to go in and put your additional equipment in. That's largely whilst we recognise that playground is already good. It just makes sense to combine projects, hence why that is put in that 24-25 financial year.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so can I take everybody back now to page 18, recommendations 2 in your council agenda, and we'll go through from 1 to E separately. Vicky, did you have something that you wish to add to any of, or Rachel, to any of those? You want to get the girls to draw them up for us, so we...
Yes, as we go, so we can start going through. I've got changes to item C. So if we want to go through B now, which is just going through each submission, just checking them off, that acknowledging them.
All right, so let's start with A, that we received the report, the Frimley Reserve Management Plan, report dated 29th of November 2022. Have a mover, Councillor Redstone, seconded Councillor Corbin. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Right, it's carried, none against. B, we now move to B, which is the council received the written and oral submissions as presented and set out in attachment 1 to the report at A above. So let's just have a look at that first and make sure that all the written submissions have been covered off. We've covered off the oral ones. Rachel, could you just take us to the page, please?
So if you are on attachment, attachment 1, so starting at page 3, and every submission is copied in full and included in those attachments, and they've all been addressed via each of the remedies.
Okay, so they've all been addressed by the remedies. Any questions? Do I have a mover, please? Move Councillor Shotton, second Councillor Nixon. Any further questions or comments? All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Right, now we move to C. Council makes determinations on submissions made to the draft Frimley Park Reserve Management Plan recommendations numbered A to PP, and those are the ones that we've just been through, all those recommendations and remedies. Rich.
And I'll just identify, so we will bring all of those up on the screen, and I'll just go through the individual remedies that we have discussed as wanting to be changed, and Vicky will make those changes on the
Perhaps
screen.
we'll just adjourn we'll just adjourn the meeting for a couple of minutes as you two confer, and then we'll have them up on the screen ready for you. So the council meeting is adjourned for 2 minutes, and we leave the staff to follow those up. Thank you. Okay. Meeting resumed. Thank you, everybody. If we could just bring up those recommendations now.
So I'll just talk you through, there's 3 changes proposed as a result of discussions this morning, and those changes are shown in highlighted. So first is V, relating to the submission from Mary Brooker, and we're just removing the words that talked about disallowing in part relating to the speed humps, and instead just saying design of Lyndhurst Road, including traffic calming measures, will be prepared in consultation with the local community. Now we'll move down to Y. Move down to Y. Removing the words for vans relating to the parking improvements. And now moving down to EE. Relating to the use of the poplar tree wood, where we say wood made available for wood turning, and adding the words or alternative community use to take into account what Charles recommended. Those are the only 3 changes to the remedy lists.
Thank you. Alwyn?
I'd like to see the removal of for wood turning from that and put made available for community use, particularly in commemoration of the 150-year anniversary of Hastings.
So, Councillor Watkins?
I don't support that. I think the wood turners should be given first crack, and I'll tell you why, Owen. We did a huge project here between Hastings and China 2019 that was aligned to the New Zealand-China Year of Tourism. And the wood turners spent countless days and days and days turning up the treasures that we put in our chests. And they went round and they sourced local trees that had been cut down, different varieties, and they made an incredible job, and those chests were all sent to 23 provinces in China. And I think to acknowledge what they did to help us, and they're only asking for the 90 bits on the roots, they're not asking for the trunk, it's just those little bits that they turn up and polish, and I think they should be given that opportunity.
So the wood being made available for wood turning or alternative community use, I see as fair and reasonable for the wider community, for people to be able to, it's community use. We don't have to write a specific group or anybody there. So I think that captures that. Comfortable with that, Alwyn?
Well, it should be and rather than or, because it's either or as it is.
Wood turning and community use, yes? Everyone comfortable with that? Lovely, thank you. Councillor Kerr? No? No further comments on that one? Right, good. Excellent. Okay, so we have recommendation C. Council makes determinations on submissions made to the draft Frimley Reserve Management Plan, numbered recommendations A to PP, as included in attachment 3. And amended at this meeting. And moved by Councillor Apatu, seconded by Councillor Dixon. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Recommendation D, that Council recommend the allocation of funds required to complete the capital works program identified in the action plan and attachment 4 for consideration and inclusion in the 2024-2034 long-term plan.
I've got an amendment to make to that.
Okay, so we're just going through the amendment for that.
So if I can, as discussed, we will need to add the words as identified in the action plan in attachment 4, and to bring the new toilet from 27-28 to 24-25 financial year.
Any questions on that? Okay, thank you. So I have a mover, please. Councillor Redstone, seconded Councillor Watkins. Any comments? I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Last recommendation, recommendation E, that the Frimley Park Reserve Management Plan as amended by determinations on submissions be presented for adoption at the council meeting on the 15th of December 2022. Mover, thank you, Councillor Corbyn. Seconder, Councillor Dixon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Well, that concludes our very important part of our Frimley Park Reserve Management Plan hearings report. Thank you for the enormous amount of work, Alex, Rachel and Colin. And Alex, this is the beginning of this is us getting used to working together like this and doing reserve management plans. So amazing amount of work, and thank you for bringing this great plan to us today. We have one further item to cover off this afternoon. No, it's still morning. Still morning, nearly afternoon, which is item 9, and it's a proposed amendment to council meeting schedule for December 2022. Welcome, Louise.
Happy to move, Your Worship.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Watkins. Any questions, anybody? No? Thank you. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you. That is carried. That concludes today's meeting. Thank you. A very warm and welcome now to councillors to stay. And thank you to the staff for bringing us this agenda. Great work, everybody. Thank you, everyone. Oh, they're gone. They wanted to exit quickly. So just